Hi, I'm Marigold, and this is the story of how a Thanksgiving stroke showed me the truth about family, who stays when you're silent, and who disappears the moment you can't speak. They took my name off the deed, erased my rights on paper, and left me alone in a hospital room with no coat, no wallet, and no goodbye. But what they didn't expect was that I'd wake up, clear-headed, remembering everything, and holding a lottery ticket they would have burned. Before we go any further, tell me, have you ever felt like an outsider in your own family? If yes, comment number 1. If no, comment number 0. This is a family drama you don't want to miss. Thanksgiving morning, and I woke up in a beige hospital room. No visitors, no flowers, just the beep of a monitor and a hollowness that settled in my chest. The air smelled faintly of bleach and something sweet, like artificial vanilla. I turned my head, wincing at the tug of an IV taped to the inside of my elbow. The television across the room played a silent clip of the Macy's parade. Confetti drifted across the screen. A giant cartoon turkey gobble down a New York street, grinning like it didn't know what it meant to be alone on a holiday. My mouth was dry. My left hand, when I tried to lift it, barely responded. The ache spread slowly through my chest, not sharp, but deep and dull, like something had cracked quietly inside me while I was unconscious. A nurse entered, her scrubs covered in tiny pumpkins. She smiled politely, professionally, like someone used to delivering news with a soft voice and quick exit. "You're awake," she said, checking my vitals. "That's a good sign." I licked my lips. "Where's my mom?" She froze for a moment before smoothing the blanket near my knee. "She left shortly after you were admitted. Said you'd understand." Understand? I tried to sit up further, blinking hard. Did she say she'd be back? She didn't say, but she did sign a few forms before leaving. Something about guardianship. The words stuck in my ears like static. I looked around. There was no purse beside the bed, no phone, not even my sneakers. My coat was missing too. I was wearing a hospital gown and a pair of mismatched socks that clearly weren't mine. Outside the window, snow had begun to fall in lazy spirals. A single sedan sat in the lot below, engine off, frosted over. Mom's car wasn't there. She left. She'd actually left. I could still hear her voice, faint and far away, from that car ride. How she never turned when I said I couldn't feel my arm. How she answered the nurse at triage like I was a stranger. She's always dramatic when she's tired. That line clung to me now like cold sweat. For years, she called me resilient. That was her word. Said I didn't need help like Corinne did. Said I handled things. I thought it was a compliment. I wore it like armor. You're strong. You're always the strong one. But lying there in a quiet hospital room, while the rest of the world carved turkeys and passed mashed potatoes, it didn't feel like strength. It felt like being forgotten. If Mom signed something while I couldn't speak. What else had she taken? They said I was confused, but I remembered every word they used to silence me. The hospital halls were quieter now, dulled by the holiday hush. Evening light filtered through frosted windows, casting long amber shadows across the linoleum. Somewhere, a nurse chuckled behind a desk phone, her voice low and forgettable. I stood a few feet away, half hidden by a fake ficus plant, listening, because it felt like the only power I had left. "She already signed the POA," someone said behind the front desk. "It's filed. The patient had prior instability." My heart kicked hard. I stepped closer. "Excuse me, did you just say power of attorney?" The nurse looked up, startled. "That's confidential. I'm sorry." Her smile dropped. "You should be resting." I didn't move. Couldn't. My body had stiffened against the weight of that phrase. She already signed. No, I didn't. I turned away before my knees buckled, leaned against the wall near the vending machine, and tried to steady my breath. That's when I noticed him. Tall, slim, maybe mid-20s. Brown hair tucked under a navy cap, a stethoscope looped casually around his neck. He hesitated near the supply cart, then walked toward me. "Miss Wynne?" His voice was soft, careful. I blinked. "I'm Elias Knox. You probably don't remember me, but you used to tutor me at Sweet Haven Bakery, mornings before school." And just like that, I did remember. The smell of warm apples, a boy in a too-big hoodie, fidgeting over fractions. I'd pulled his test grades from failing to passing with nothing but paper napkins and leftover muffins. "You were good with numbers," I murmured. He smiled, then lowered his voice. "I saw your name on the chart. I also saw the POA form, and it doesn't look right." My pulse surged. "Can I see it?" He gave the smallest nod. "Not here. Give me 10 minutes, I'll print it." I waited near the vending machines, staring at a bag of peanut M&Ms I couldn't afford. Snow clung to the corners of the window like icing. When he returned, he handed me a folder slipped discreetly into a patient tray. Inside was my name, spelled correctly, placed neatly, but the signature? Slanted wrong. The loops are stiff and foreign. Then, my eyes caught a note written at the bottom of the attached document. "Patient exhibits early signs of cognitive disorientation." Dated 2 weeks before my stroke. Signed in my mother's tidy script. I felt my breath stall, my fingers trembling at the edges of the page. They didn't just sign me away, they planned it. She abandoned me while I was in the hospital and saw me as abnormal. A feeling of betrayal and abandonment is playing over my head right now. Have you ever felt the way I do now? If you sympathize with me, please leave a comment number 9 in the comments section below. Now, let's get to the next development of this story. They erased my name in ink, but I held on to something that wasn't in their plans. The waiting room was empty except for the flicker of an old television showing a Charlie Brown Thanksgiving. The sound was barely audible, just enough to catch the laugh track and the clink of cartoon cutlery. Outside, snow kept falling, soft, patient, steady. I sat hunched in a corner chair, the vinyl cold through the thin fabric of my gown, my back to the hallway, facing the vending machines like they had answers. Elias had dropped off a duffel bag earlier, just said, "They're doing shift change," and slid it under the bench like he was handing me a secret. I waited until the lights dimmed for nighttime protocol, then opened the zipper with careful fingers. The ticket was where I'd left it, folded into my old wallet, tucked in the coin slot, beneath a receipt for canned soup and toothpaste. It was wrinkled and slightly sticky, one corner still marked with a faint coffee stain. It didn't look like $2 million. It looked like something Mom would have thrown away without blinking. I pulled out my phone, the burner Elias had included. No case, no apps, just a browser. I typed slowly, "Ohio Lottery, check ticket." My fingers trembled as I entered each number from the yellowed slip, one by one. 4 digits in, I stopped. My chest tightened. 5, 6. The final number stared back at me like it knew a secret. Confirmed. I didn't cry. I didn't gasp or laugh or scream. I just sat there, staring at the confirmation screen, feeling the room tilt in a new direction. The monitor behind me beeped once. The vending machine light cast a faint orange glow on my lap, making the printout shimmer slightly as I hit the print confirmation page. I folded the page twice, slid it flat into my bra. The ticket itself I tucked under the insole of the slip-on shoes Elias had packed. They were half a size too big and smelled faintly of rubber, but they were mine now. A nurse passed in the hallway. I didn't move. She didn't look in. The TV continued playing, Charlie Brown sighing about something small and sad. I stared at the floor, then at my hands, hands they'd called weak, confused, incapable of signing for myself. But I had just signed something they couldn't touch. They thought I was finished, but I just bought my voice back. They erased my records, my rights, and my voice, but not my memories. And memories are where the truth hides. The old key still fit the lock. The cabin door groaned as I pushed it open, snow trailing behind my shoes. The air inside smelled like pine dust and old cinnamon. Cold bit into my cheeks, but the silence welcomed me like an old quilt. I hadn't been here since Grandpa passed. The wood stove was cold, but the kettle still sat on the burner, its enamel chipped at the rim. I tapped the light switch by the door. 2 quick clicks, just like he taught me. A lamp by the window flickered on, casting a golden pool across the narrow room. I set the duffel down and stood still for a moment, letting the quiet fill every part of me. No beeping machines, no whispered pity. Just me, breathing in a place that had always felt separate from the noise of the world. There was a small photo pinned to the bookshelf, Grandpa holding me on his shoulders, a plaid scarf wrapped around us both. Tucked beside it was a rusted tin box. I opened it carefully. Inside, Polaroids, faded receipts, a set of folded documents, and beneath them, his old notebook. The spine cracked when I opened it, and on the first page, in his tight, slanted handwriting, sometimes survival means taking back the pen. I made tea with the last of the loose leaves I found in a mason jar above the sink. The mug was rough ceramic, a gift I once made for him in 3rd grade, misshapen and still here. I sat at the small table and called the number Elias had scribbled. Caleb Harmon, a lawyer who didn't flinch easily. He picked up on the second ring. His voice was low, gravelly, and careful. "I've handled cases like this before," he said, after I explained. "You're not the first to disappear on paper." We agreed to speak again in 2 days. I opened my folder, spreading every document across the table. The POA with the wrong signature, hospital records, banking notices, printouts of timestamps. I started organizing with paper clips and color tabs, methodical, steady. I wasn't unraveling. I was building something. Near the bottom of the folder, I found a scanned form that stopped me cold. It had my name typed at the top. The signature looked passable at first glance. But the date? 2 weeks before the stroke, when I'd been grading essays and walking to work, when my vitals had been clean, when I had been fine. They didn't wait for me to fall. They made sure I would. They called me delusional. But delusion doesn't leave email timestamps and forged forms. The dining table had become my war desk. Beneath the soft yellow glow of the lamp, I laid out every document I had like pieces of a puzzle I finally knew how to solve. Outside the window, snow lined the porch railings, piling in quiet drifts. The mini brother printer hummed on the counter behind me, obedient and steady. Caleb sat across from me, glasses slipping halfway down his nose as he flipped through another stack of printed emails. "We'll need to sequence these. The bank activity first, then the hospital records, then the POA discrepancies." I nodded, labeling each tab with shaky but determined hands. Blue for financial records, yellow for medical logs, red for signatures that didn't belong to me. Elias had emailed earlier, subject line, "She said it out loud." Attached was a grainy voice recording, my mother's voice, sharp and too casual. She always overreacts when she's overwhelmed. I replayed it twice, not out of disbelief, but to remember the tone. How quick she was to flatten me into a single sentence. Caleb leaned forward. "Ready to film?" I pulled my sweatshirt sleeves down over my palms and clicked the webcam on. The image showed my face, pale, tired, steady. I took a breath. "My name is Marigold Wynn. I was admitted to Athens General on November 24th under false medical pretense. Documents were signed in my name without my consent. I kept going, listing details with no dramatic inflection, no cracked voice. Just fact after fact, printed and held up one by one. Behind me, the wreath of paper Caleb's daughter had made last year fluttered slightly when the heater clicked on. It smelled faintly of cinnamon and glue. When we finished, Caleb uploaded the video to a secure whistleblower portal. We sent packets to 3 places: WLCN8, the Tennessee Attorney General's office, and the Ohio Guardianship Review Bureau. I watched the progress bar crawl across the screen until the final "Upload Complete" flashed green. Then, a chime. An email. From a reporter. "We're reviewing this immediately. Please confirm you're safe." I stared at the screen, hands still hovering over the keys. A knot in my chest loosened. Not relief, not yet, but the beginning of something I hadn't felt in weeks. Momentum. I wasn't just fighting back. I was rebuilding what they broke, piece by piece. Some people fight with fists. I fought with facts, and a memory no one could take. The courthouse in Columbus smelled like paper and floor wax, the kind that clings to your clothes long after you leave. I sat straight in my chair at the plaintiff's table, Caleb beside me, quiet but present. Snow was melting outside. Puddles gathered at the base of the tall windows, streaked with salt. Denise and Corinne sat across the aisle. Neither of them looked at me. Corinne clutched a leather folder like it was armor. And Mom looked like she always did when the world didn't orbit her. Inconvenienced. The judge entered. Older, silver hair, voice low and even. His eyes scanned the documents as if they could whisper what we hadn't already said out loud. I had already said it anyway. I was never crazy, I told the court. I was just too quiet. The rest was done with proof. Caleb laid it all out. POA, forms dated during times I was still teaching. Banking statements that showed transfers into accounts I didn't own. Recordings. Voicemails. A copy of a death certificate for the doctor, whose signature had magically appeared on one of the evaluations. No one objected. Not really. Even Corinne's attorney didn't sound convinced when she tried to argue stress or misunderstanding. Denise stayed silent the entire time. The judge looked down at his papers one last time, then up at me. All rights of Ms. Marigold Wynne are fully restored. It was over. There wasn't a cheer or a gasp, just a soft shifting of coats and paper as the room began to exhale. I didn't look at them when I stood. I didn't need to. I was already thinking about the road back to Tennessee. The cabin was quiet when I arrived. The floorboards creaked like they missed company. The radio on the windowsill played Silent Night in low tones. I filled the kettle, struck a match, and let the stove hum softly as the water warmed. A small bouquet of tea roses sat on the step, pale pink, wrapped in wax paper. Tucked inside, a note in Elias's handwriting. "You helped me first. This is just me catching up." I poured my tea into the old mug and opened the window. Cold air swept in, soft and fresh. Sunlight spilled onto the rug like it had been waiting for me. I glanced at the photo of Grandpa, tucked between 2 books on the shelf. I smiled, lifting the mug toward him. "Grandpa, I made it." I didn't walk away angry. I walked away free. There are truths we carry not in our voices, but in our steadiness when the world tries to rewrite our worth. In a season built on family, I found my peace not in forgiveness, but in finally choosing myself. Kindness, I learned, doesn't always come from familiar faces. Sometimes it's tucked in a folded note, a shared memory, or a quiet act from someone who remembers who you really are. When we stop judging by appearance, by titles, tone, or silence, we open space for people to show us their truest selves. If this story found its way to your heart, consider passing along a little kindness to someone who might need it. No questions, no expectations, just the warmth of being seen.